Live from the Business Radio X studio in Atlanta, it's time for Dental Business Radio, brought to you by Practice Quotient. Practice Quotient bridges the gap between the provider and payer communities. Now here's your host, Patrick O'Rourke.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me here at Dental Business Radio. I am with Rod and Roderick Uribe with ProMed. And I have known Rod for some time. I've seen Rod all over the country at different OMS shows. And not quite sure what his company does. But what I do know about Rod is that he has told me a lot about his son, Roderick. And this is the first time I've ever met Roderick. And all of the stuff that Rod has told me about Roderick is true. Very nice young man. You say hello, Rod.
Hello. Right. I'm Roderick.
All right. And you're an Eagle Scout, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you have interest in the business. So you are now a territory manager.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the subject of today's show will be nepotism. I'm just playing. I'm just kidding. And we're going to talk about the business. But what I found interesting, why I felt like this was going to be a good show, is like my own family has zero interest in my business. But the father-son dynamic and also all of the things that you've told me about your son, he's very proud of you, by the way, very bright individual, Eagle Scout, and you're dressed quite well today. And I've seen you hustling. This weekend, we're at the Breakers in Palm Beach for the Florida Society of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons. First of all, my question for you, Roderick, is what has made you enthusiastic about joining ProMed, your father's business?
It really started when I was a kid. I started going to these meetings when I was about 10 years old, and I knew from then on this is what I wanted to do. So I've been working towards this for a long time now, and I'm about to turn 20 this year. So
20,
September 11th.
It's all downhill from there, bud.
But it's really been a dream of mine to do this, and I really enjoy the traveling and meeting new faces, new doctors. And it's
if I could hang out at places like this, like the Breakers, when I was 20, yes, I'm with you on that. I would consider I'm glad that you're grateful for the blessings there. Let's pretend for a second that I'm Dr. O'Rourke, which would make my mom real proud, right? I'm Dr. O'Rourke. I walk up to your table over there and it says ProMed, and I see some monitors and lights, chairs and stuff. All right, so maybe I'm not Dr. O'Rourke. Let's just keep it. I'm Patrick O'Rourke. I don't know what any of that stuff does. What does ProMed do?
So we specialize in MS. We do everything.
Specialize in what?
Oral surgery. So
oral surgery? You take teeth out of my mouth? What equipment do you have over there?
Monitors, chairs, lights, cameras.
Only for oral surgeons?
Just for oral surgeons.
Who would your competitors be? Like the big dental supply chains? Henry Schein,
Patterson, Salvin. Those are going to be the big conglomerates that we compete with.
Gotcha. And so the other interesting thing about this is a family-owned business, right? And it's headquartered in the great state of Georgia, right? Now, I've seen all over the place, but I know that you're Georgia, so we're practically neighbors on different sides of metros, really. It's interesting, though, because those are really Fortune 500 companies, or at least the first two. I've never heard of the third. And that's not unusual for somebody like me, right? So I'm from corporate America. I didn't know who Henry Schein was until I got into this world, or Patterson for that matter. But those are larger companies, and you guys are smaller. So what's the difference between you guys and the big boys? Because you would assume that they could buy in bulk and get pricing discounts. I don't know. So if I'm the oral surgeon, which again make my mom proud, but and I see that you have developed some good relationships, but I don't want to tell you. You tell me, what is the difference between a larger company and ProMed?
So it's going to be service. So we're a full service dealer. So the huge difference is my knowledge base, our knowledge base in oral surgery, understanding what an oral surgeon needs, how they practice, being able to start with, are you right-handed or left-handed? And then, do you like electric drills or nitrogen, or how do you deliver nitrous oxide? How do you position your patient in the chair? Where do you like your instrumentation? What we can provide that Schein or Patterson rep will not be able to do is that customization. Now, Shine and Patterson, if you know what you want and you don't need anybody's help, then they can come in and say, hey doc, what do you need? And just be an order taker. Whereas we're full service and custom. Not any one of these surgeons are the same.
That's
they all have their
true.
different quirks and they all have their different wants and needs. And so I can also offer with new oral surgeons that are coming out, I can give them advice in starting their practice, in being able to choose staff or look at design for the office and understand ergonomics and flow. So that's where we have an advantage. Our disadvantage is that we are small, and if we don't get to talk to the doctor, we don't get to explain to them the difference. And once we can speak with the doctor, they'll immediately know that there's a knowledge difference in how I can articulate and speak to them, not necessarily on their surgical level, but on their practice level.
Gotcha. On the workflow. So we've been in a lot of places that's all very actually interesting. It's almost like wisdom, right? Experience. Been there. It's all the same face. And now you have a multi-generational of the same family that's grown up in the business. Whereas there may be some veterans of any large company that's not, they could leave at any time, right? Because I'm from corporate America and restructuring happens all the time. Restructuring is a really nice word. It scares everybody, right? It's for good reason. And so I like what I'm hearing because I'm a small business too, right? We're small business owners, right? And it's not easy being a business owner. And that's what this show also is about, is like we're all in this together. So who are the good guys in the business and what's everybody doing to help out the other business owners? And so there's too often I feel like there's entities that are doing everything that they can to squeeze every penny they can out of me. And so I try not to do the same for clients. And so it's because it's not always about price. It's about outcome.
Right.
If we're on a spreadsheet and we're talking about price, that's easy, but it's about outcome at the end. Are you going to acquire what you really want versus just buying something?
Correct. That's one of the problems with the PE that's happening in our industry, is that they're looking at their bottom line just monetarily. They're not looking at the necessity there's still a necessity for somebody knowledgeable that can help them when they have issues. And they will have issues. And they have more issues when they become larger and less connected into their businesses. Now, I prefer to work with solo practices or groups that are smaller, that are not owned by private equity, because they can make their own decisions. And I still have a multitude of clients that have sold to private equity and still use ProMed, but it's much more limited.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to buy from someplace that has everything. Now, we don't do everything. We don't do X-ray. We don't do drugs. We do everything else around their office, but we don't get into those two spaces.
So you know what you're good at.
I know what I'm good at, and I also know what I want to stay away from regulatory.
Gotcha. So what I heard you say, and this comes at a very big shock to me, this is my shocked face, is that sometimes our clients, because the private equity absorption rate in the oral surgery space has been nothing short of dramatic over the course of the past 4 to 5 years. And listen, I'm neutral. Love you guys, smooches. But one of the things was that I was always curious about it, because they're telling my clients, or the docs are like, I can still do whatever I want. And I'm like, yeah, until you can't. And so I would be worried about that as an investor too, by the way, just to show you both sides of it, because anybody who's not worked with oral surgeons doesn't know that these are not like general dentists at all. It's a male-dominated field, and to say that they're type A would be an understatement, right? They want their stuff the way they want it, and they're not going to settle for anything else, and they're not going to listen to any of your boo nanny, all right? Because this is a family-friendly show. I'll use my boo nanny word. And so what I'm hearing from you is that they're told that they can still use ProMed.
Yes.
And then
Yes and no.
so over time, that tends to kind of dissipate.
Yes, some are more stringent than others. Getting to be a part of their procurement system can be challenging, to say the least. So they have, I don't think intranet is the right word, but they have their own dashboard where they can go on and then they order products. And so you need to be able to get into that system to be in front of any of those people that are doing the ordering. So it's not really as a one-off. We just call in or go to the website.
Mm-hmm.
There's generally not as much freedom for the purchasers.
And this is even more of a gatekeeper than probably what should be considered the greatest gatekeeper ever, which is anybody at a medical, oral surgery, or a dental practice. They protect that doc. They can, whatever skills they may or may not have, the one thing they are good at is keeping anybody away from that doctor.
That's true.
I say that out of admiration and respect for that skill to all of you practice managers and staff. I would like the bodyguards like that. And no longer it's a practice manager, but now it is the system. But ultimately, you've probably identified that continuing to go that route, probably not. It takes just more time. Whereas you can focus on your current clients that love you.
You have to go further and further. So in equipment sales, there's not as much recurring sales. In, say, a monitor cycle may be 7 to 12 years before you're purchasing another monitor. Assuming everything's great, you're not having to repair the monitor, you're going to have to replace some of it. Generally, you're talking about a 7 to 12 year cycle. And most of the equipment is about like that, whether it be in sterilization or now in an operatory in a chair, it's going to be a much longer cycle.
7 to 12 year cycle. That's pretty broad, though. Like it's almost double 7 to 12. Could be 7, could be 12.
Right.
Either way, it's long.
Maybe the monitor was made on a Monday. Maybe it was made on Wednesday afternoon. So, I think some of that goes into it. And then there's also luck of the draw.
They are electronics, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
You can get a great apple or you can get a bad apple.
All right, I'm picking up what you're putting down. And so as far as the equipment goes, what sets you apart there? Or is it more of a commodity when it comes to equipment?
So it's become more of a commodity probably around 2013, 14. Monitors became more of a commodity. Prior to that, the monitor industry was, there were really 3 players. Now there are a multitude of players. You have only 1 or 2 that are made in the United States, and everything else is made in China that is FDA approved. So it's definitely become more of a commodity. And now everyone is shopping for price until you have a problem. When you have that problem, it's being able to service that unit without having to send it back to the manufacturer.
So do you guys service?
We do. We do service. And we also provide loaners, which is something that the big guys do not do. They'll do it for a fee, but we do it for free.
So let's say free, that's one of those words that still costs you. It's no charge to them. So just to be clear out there in listener land, nothing's free, baby. Now, break this down for me. I'm not a clinical guy, right? My background's finance and insurance. And when I hear monitor, I'm like, okay, I've got a bunch of monitors. I've got 3 of them on my desk. My data analyst has 4. I would imagine that our monitors for our firm does different things than the monitors that you guys have.
That would be correct.
So what do these monitors do?
So these tell the lifeline of the patient that they are putting to sleep. So these monitors are connected to the patient that's going to read the electrical activity of the heart. It's going to monitor the amount of CO2 in their expired breath. It's going to read their pulse oximetry, which is their oxygen saturation in the blood, and it's going to read their blood pressure. They use these to determine how well the patient is reacting to being put to sleep and to the surgery that they're being put under.
So this is critical infrastructure.
Absolutely.
So I'm a patient, very well could be. I need to make sure that I want them to have the best equipment, because if they're monitoring or the stuff's going haywire, then they might give me too much of something and then I don't come out. I don't wake up.
Now keep in mind that these are some of the best trained people that do surgery.
This is true. Shout out to everybody that's members of AMOS, and certainly, since we are in Florida, the Florida Society of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons.
So they are also looking at the patient. So they are also visually monitoring. They can see chest rise and fall. They can see the skin coloration. So they're looking at other things as well. But the monitors allow them a faster diagnostic.
Even if you're the best pilot in the world, I like analogies, best pilot in the world, you still need your instruments, or it's going to help you. Is that a fair analogy? You know? So, I don't know, that seems pretty important to me. It's blood pressure. I don't know the one word that you said I've never heard before, so I was trying to spell it on my little notes here, but I'm not going to, so we're just going to forget.
Which word? Capnography?
No, it was the other one.
Pulse oximetry?
Yeah, that one there. Yeah,
so that's just a big word for reading the oxygen in your blood. It's letting them know that your lungs are exchanging oxygen.
All right, so Roderick didn't know this, but I'm just going to mess with him a little bit. Roderick, pop quiz. Spell that word.
Pulse oximetry?
Yes.
Another word is finger sensor.
Very good, very good. All right.
To make it a little easier for the audience.
Okay, finger sensor. It's a finger sensor, guys. Well done, sir. Well done. So will you spend most of your time speaking with the physicians, right?
Yes.
And then you are also, like, how do you learn how to fix the equipment?
I've been doing this now 20 years. I've been to the manufacturers and been through training with opening up the monitors and diagnostics and changing out boards and being able to test to make sure that they're within parameter, things of that nature. So that knowledge came directly from manufacturers and taking apart different monitors.
So it's a fairly big deal, I think, is somebody who, I'm not very handy, okay? And I've gotten better over the years because I'm more patient, but it's not my skill set, right? So when I bought my first house, for example, and again, analogies, just bear with me. My toolbox is a butter knife and a T-ball bat, right? Now, I've got much more tools now, but when I have somebody come over that's a professional that I need to hire, it's important to me that they understand everything and they're able then to also explain it to me. But I also need to know, even if it's words for finger sensors, and then I have no idea I need to have confidence and trust that they know exactly what they're doing, right? Even if I have no idea what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
And so that's important. Shout out to my IT team, to TST, because they sometimes speak to me and I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm just like, we're safe and secure and everybody's up and running. That's all I need to know. Learned all about the monitors. I see chairs, I see lamps, I see desks. What else? What do you lead with, or what are people most interested in? What are the oral surgeons most interested in these days? I saw a lot of folks up at your booth, for lack of a better word, here at the Breakers here in Palm Beach. Feel free to sign up, be a sponsor, bring me down so I can check it out a little bit more. I did not play any golf.
It really depends. It depends on what stage the surgeon is in, whether they're a resident coming out, deciding whether they're going to build their own practice, or just weighing their options, or if you've got someone who hasn't been out very long, they've got some equipment that they're needing, maybe things aren't working as well. So they'll see something on the table that sparks something to them, or they may not know what some of the stuff is.
That would be me.
So they'll come over and say, oh, what's this used for? So it's just a way to try to have it's really just a smattering of what we do. I'd have to have a giant catalog the size of what we used to have, the Sears catalog.
Mm-hmm. I remember those.
All the products in there. And so it's just things to when they come by and one thing will catch their eye. Maybe they need a positive pressure device. So we have an ambu bag as well as a mask with a pop-off valve that's on there. And they'll know what those are. Oh, you know what? That sparked something. My 3-liter bag on my nitrous oxide machine just burst. I need another one. Or maybe they want some different ideas on how to monitor the capnography, because obviously we're in dentistry, so we're working in the mouth. And capturing someone's expired breath, if they're breathing through their mouth, it's very difficult. In a perfect world, they breathe through their nose, and you can capture that. So there are different tips and tricks and things that they can do to better monitor, to give them the best possible capnograph that they're going to see on their monitor. So that kind of.
Let me ask you a question. We just did a show with Dr. Nick Cavicles, and he has a working operatory. Among many other things, Dr. Nick is an entrepreneur. He's out of Tampa, Florida, and he was trying to find a clean air, and so he couldn't find a clean air purification system that he liked until he finally found one like in Canada, and then he just bought the entire company. That's Dr. Nick does. Yes. And he was telling me, and he was showing me about this surgically clean air. How do folks test for that? Because I'm just curious, because I just did this interview with him, and I was like, I thought everybody would test for clean air.
Okay, now depending on, typically oral surgery was built just like a dental office. So it would have regular heating and air, just like you would have in your home. Mm-hmm. Okay, no difference. They didn't have specific positive pressure systems like you'd have in a hospital. Okay. So if it's that type of thing, what are you going to do? You change your filters just like you do at your house. Mm-hmm. But as far as monitoring the air, there was no device or anything for that. And then COVID came along. There were companies that came in. Look, we've had little clean air machines that have been around for, I don't know, at least a decade, probably longer than that, that I've been aware of. There's water filtration, there's air filtration. But as far as testing what's there, I really don't know what they use. I know.
And he doesn't, I don't know, he had this little trigger thing, but I don't think he does that all the time. I was just curious because it seemed to be like a real challenge for him. And he's like, I just wasn't able to find comfortable. And it just made me think as a consumer, and if somebody as knowledgeable as you are, especially with the COVID, I had lots of my clients were like, well, we just spent $100,000 on the air filtration. I'm like, oh, okay. Me as a layman, I have no idea whether that's good or bad.
To monitor is a difficult thing because it's like hiring a company to beef up your website. Oh, we're gonna do all this, and you're gonna generate sales. Okay, how do you really know what you've got? It's a difficult thing to know. You know exactly the channel with which that they were able to bring you that new customer. Right? You just have to trust that I'm spending this money on SEO and I'm getting something from it. Right? So the air filtration is like that. How are you going to monitor? How are you going to know what you've actually done? Now, there are different ways that they can study that, like by swabbing different areas in the operatories to determine before and after effects of what would land on flat surfaces. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so then you can swab that, and then you can plate it, and you can see what grows.
See what grows?
See what grows.
All right.
See what germs and things have been that are moving around in your system. Now, there are some air filtration systems that they put in now that have carbon filtration as well as micron filtration.
That's what he's talking about.
As UV sterilization, that the air goes through a chamber where it's a UV bulb. And then depending on the speed at which the air goes through there, you can kill different things. In my former life, I had an aquarium company. A lot about UV sterilization because we use that in the aquariums to kill different organisms.
Isn't that just sunlight?
UV?
Yeah.
Sure, but it's just UV, so it's just that spectrum. So you're not getting the rest of the spectrum. So then how quickly you move whatever.
Roderick's nodding his head over here like I should definitely know all of it. He's like, this is common knowledge, buddy. And I'm like, no idea.
Everybody knows this.
So my understanding
no
of that,
idea.
and then I've seen those systems put into air filtration. But how important that is now, I guess that's going to be on an individual basis with the surgeons. What's most important to them? After COVID, I have some surgeons that still buy N95 masks. I have a lot of, most of the surgeons don't. They went back to using level 3 regular masks that they were using prior to COVID. Everybody has their individual things and their own, what makes them comfortable.
So it goes back to the whole oral surgeons are going to do
Everybody's going to do different things. So if they're comfortable, what's the main thing is patient safety. That's
right.
the
Amen.
main goal.
As a patient.
The main goal of any oral surgeon is patient safety.
Absolutely. And I agree.
Good outcomes.
Every time I talk to any oral surgeon, that's definitely what their primary concern is. And that's what separates them as a specialist versus a general dentist, which is why they should get paid more. To my friends at the insurance companies, I know that you listen to these. Hi, I love you, smooches. See you in Minneapolis later this year. And so it's fascinating, and I've determined that both of you way more than me about any of this stuff pertaining to your business, which is not altogether a surprise. So let's turn our conversation back to the dynamic of being a family business. Do you find that it's any different having your son as an employee versus an actual employee? Like,
Absolutely.
Let's start off with the softball here. What is one of the advantages of having your son versus hiring somebody that's not related to you?
It wasn't my choice, so it was more of his choice of wanting to do it. So, well, how could I not?
Awkward Thanksgiving, but
so as far as
how are you going to fire him? He could just goof off. He could be playing golf right now.
that's another challenge. It's, I think we okay job. You know, the toughest job you'll ever do is be a parent, right? Don't get your scorecard till it's too late.
That's correct. Yes.
But I think we did okay with that. So that's
I would be proud if my son turned out to be.
Sure. I mean,
very much like Roderick.
Is he's always there. You know, that's
you know where to find him.
You know where to find him. Rattle his cage at any time. And I saw early on when
you know his parents.
I know his parents. I don't like his parents. I saw early on that you mentioned he's an Eagle Scout. He was raised more traditionally than maybe some people raise their kids. He was raised to say yes sir, no sir, and yes ma'am, no ma'am. Look people in the eye, shaking their hand, and actually engage with the person. And when he was 10, I took him to his first meeting, and he was sitting at the table by himself. And a surgeon came in and saw him. There was nobody really in the room except for reps at their tables, and there might have been, I don't know, 40 reps that were in the room. And the surgeon sees Roderick sitting at the table and made a beeline right for him. And I was a couple of tables down talking to one of my extended trade show family, and I just said, oh, this will be interesting. Let's see how this goes. And I was close enough that I could hear. And the surgeon walked up and he says, hey there, young fellow, how are you? And Roderick stood up, looked him in the eye, shook his hand, and greeted him. And the surgeon just kind of looked there and he says, looks at the monitor. He says, what can you tell me about this monitor? Roderick kind of rocks back, looks over at the monitor and says, well, cuts his eyes back to the surgeon and says, got a lot of buttons. And the surgeon just was immediately, engaged and enamored with him. And then they continued talking. The surgeon invites him to lunch. And he went and ate lunch with 9 doctors at the table and was engaging with all of the 9 doctors at 10 years old.
That's a natural. It is, for sure.
Maybe he might be good at doing this. Disadvantages, it's probably hard. I think it's harder for him if he's my son than if he were somebody else.
I could see that.
I think
my
it's
son.
definitely tougher on him. I think he would probably say that as well. That
We're going to ask him in a second.
harder, that would be harder on him. I mean, I can say things to him that I couldn't say to other people, especially in our
Does he beat you? Does he
current
slap you
state of the
around?
world. Yeah, there's no beatings, at least not physically. But,
Does he give you tongue lashings? Starts screaming like a madman. I can't see that from Rod. I just can't. It's hard for me to see you. I can see you perturbed, like maybe, but I can't see you just totally bonkers, lost your cookies. Man, I'm sure it's happened. It's happened to everybody. But
yes, I have 2 younger brothers, so.
oh yeah, I have a younger brother too.
That has definitely come out.
So,
But I think I've overall, we've been traveling together. I've taken him to Germany, to IDS, and I took him to China to go visit a manufacturer. So he's traveled with me quite a bit.
and that's one of the hardest things, really, is traveling with people, right? That's one of the tests of getting married. Somebody had told me before I got married, they're like, make sure you take a trip together, because if you can't travel together, you're gonna have a hard time.
We will, and so we're locked in a tight space a lot. And it's challenging here and there, but for the most part, I think we get along pretty well. Then it's just about the learning and teaching him to pay attention to detail. That's the
I feel
differentiator.
like that's what I talk to my son to do, all about.
It's all about the details. It's about paying attention, about teaching him to go into an office and pay attention to what equipment, what are the wall outlets like, what are they using, what handpieces, what sterilization equipment, how is it set up. And like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I learned early. Of course, I did have an advantage that my father was an oral surgeon. I'm 82 years old and still practicing, but so I grew up around oral surgeons and around oral surgery, even though I didn't know much about it when I was a kid. But then coming into this space, paying attention to everything that they were doing, and I've been doing it long enough now that I can go into an office that was built in 1978, and I know the equipment. I'll know the stuff that's in there because I've been doing it long enough that I have seen. When I first started this, people were using copper kettles. You've probably never heard of that. A copper kettle is an old way of delivering nitrous oxide. It was a dangerous way to deliver nitrous oxide because if you ran out of oxygen, it would still pump nitrous oxide. They don't use them anymore.
Is that bad?
Is that bad? Sure, 100% nitrous oxide and you die.
Oh, okay.
Actually, the office manager of the office my father purchased killed herself on a copper kettle that the doctor prior to my dad owning the business still had in the office. She was going in and hooking herself up and getting nitrous oxide fun and ran out of oxygen. They came in and found her blue. Straight nitrous oxide is not a good thing.
Also, our message to the kids: drugs are bad. Drugs are bad. Don't do drugs.
But my understanding of equipment and things, so I'm trying to pass that on to him, and it'll take him 20 years.
It just takes time, right? So it's like an apprenticeship, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just as we're on the family thing, so your father's an oral surgeon, you're doing all the equipment. Is he like, why don't you just be an oral surgeon? Why are you doing all the equipment stuff? What led you to that? Just curious.
I have a lot of respect for these guys that go to school for 100 years.
It's a lot of school.
I was not really game for going back for that amount of time after college. I did other things. I was in the Peace Corps. I did my hippie thing, and then I came back and tried to get into the corporate world. But I've been a business owner pretty much my entire working career. Had my own aquarium company and then moved into ProMed. I did try to get into the corporate world and tried to become a rep.
Yeah, you didn't miss much.
Didn't get into. Nobody wanted me. Okay, then if I can't play in your sandbox, I'll make my own sandbox.
There you go. More power to you. I like that. It all comes down to really entrepreneurs. It's not easy. Anybody who tells you it's easy has never done it, right? But it comes down.
Nobody telling me to get up and oh, except for my wife.
Get out of there. But for me, it came down to, do you want to be the one making the decisions? Or do you want to have the decisions made for you? Is it hard making the decisions? Yeah, it's hard.
Absolutely.
But I'd rather be the one making them than having the ones made for me. And I also think that's why as business owners, you have to have other folks that can see your blind spots, which sounds to me like what you're doing a really good job of, and have established a reputation of doing so for your oral surgery clients over the years.
We hope that we're bringing value. Absolutely.
Okay. And Roderick, let's pass the microphone over there. Little box microphones, fancy. You're welcome. Let's pretend your father's not here for a second. What's awesome about working with Daddy Uribe? Papa Uribe. Do you call him Papa Uribe?
I don't. I call him Dad.
No? Okay.
But I think really a blessing, honestly. I grew up in this, and now I want to take over the business one day and learn everything I can. I really just was born with this opportunity, and now I'm going to take full advantage of it and do it to the best of my ability.
So what drives you nuts about your dad? If my son was here, he could tell you right away. He would be like, my dad snores a lot, very loud, wakes me up.
You have to get up early.
You have to get up early. Okay.
Don't like that part of it.
Yeah, my son doesn't like that part either. That's the way we travel for basketball. Like, we're not even working. And I'm like, listen, like, get up. What's early?
Early to me is early. It's different for other people.
I know. It's early to you. Early for my son is 11 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Well, early for me is 4 a.m.
I would say 4 or 5. That's pretty early.
Yeah. So I get up at like 5 or 6 every day.
Yeah, this morning we got up 6. So.
Yeah. And outside of that, who gets to pick the hotels?
Dad does. He's got the diamond memberships and everything. He's been doing it for so long now. So.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, he plans the trips and stuff. But I eventually want to move into that part where I'm planning trips and where I'm going on trips by myself. And I'm doing trade shows by myself and doing offices by myself. So I'm working into that.
Gotcha. Yeah, listen, it takes time. Planning all your stuff, I have folks do it. I didn't travel a lot when I was a kid, so I'm actually not good at it. Just ask my wife. She'll tell you. Shout out to Lenita, who does all of my travel planning. Otherwise, I wouldn't be anywhere ever. And then in my head, I have my EA, and she's even when I plan it, like you're late, you didn't get there with half your stuff anyway. Make sure to take pictures. That's what she'll say. Shout out to Lenita. And outside of that, what's the coolest place you've been?
Coolest place I've been, definitely China. That was really it was an experience. They were wearing masks before the whole COVID thing. Like, I've never seen anything like that because the pollution's so bad over there.
Is that why?
They have masks. They wear them every day. They've been wearing them. I don't know how long, but that's just all part of their culture. It's really interesting.
That is interesting. See, if I was at your age, how do you make friends with the opposite sex? You're like, oh, hey, how you doing? No, in China.
Oh, in China?
Yeah. I'm sure you do quite well here where you're not wearing a mask.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a language barrier, but yeah, here it's definitely.
Do they love Americans over there?
Yeah, they do.
So you're like, hey, take off your mask?
I didn't say that, but we actually had to wear masks because our lungs started to hurt after the first 2 days. Being there, just...
So I live in Atlanta. It's not great there.
No, it's definitely way better than.
Really? All right. Shout out to Atlanta. We're doing something right. And you guys are Georgia boys too. Yeah. Worse than LA?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Anywhere in the U.S. it's worse. It's just like India or places like that.
I'm not well traveled, believe it or not. The only place I've been to that was radically different from where I was born, was Vermont. No, there's no franchises. It's very granola there. Just the way people are there, it's different. Shout out to Katie O'Rourke, who's an artist. So she is my cousin-in-law, Chad Hollister, is a rock and roller. He's opened up for Tom Petty and Bob Dylan, and up there he's big. Everybody knows who he is. I went up there and hung out. They're like, I had to walk into a place, and they're like, "Oh, it's $20 to get in here, buddy." And then Chad walks in. They're like, "Oh, you're with Chad. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, let me take your coat." So
just $20 for showing up.
Yeah. All right. So it's just a different place, but they live right outside Montpelier, and they are your very stereotypical liberals, right? They compost, and they're Vermont. This is their deal. And so I'd like to read, you guys are Georgia, so off topic dental business radio, but for anybody in Georgia, the Cherokee County Ledger, the soapbox, are always talking about the liberals. I read it to them and I make videos and I send them back to them. And I'm like, they're talking about you guys. They think it's hilarious. It's pretty funny. I'll send you some clips. Outside of that, then Belize. I went to Belize, and I will never say I grew up poor again. After that, I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, but I had indoor plumbing and I had AC. So I think that's a real blessing. You get to go all over the world and check stuff out. And you're a buyer of all of the manufacturers there. So I'm sure you guys, if not the red carpet treatment, you at least got the business class treatment, right?
Exactly. They actually had our names up on the building. They had a little billboard and put our names on it.
That's awesome.
Welcome, Rod and Roderick Uribe. He loved that.
I would too. That's awesome.
It was awesome.
So do you guys speak like Mandarin or what?
No.
No?
Just English.
That would have been an advantage, but no.
Yeah.
No. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know? If somebody wants to get a hold of you, all right, how do they get a hold of Rod and Roderick Uribe and ProMed?
We do have a website. It is omssupply.com. The website is still a work in progress. So honestly, the best way is probably a personal conversation. So my cell phone number.
Yeah.
So my cell phone is 770-473-6160. Unless I'm on the phone or in the air, we'll answer the phone, or if you leave a message, I'll call back.
Gotcha.
So those are the easiest two ways. I also do have an office that I left in Atlanta. I moved from Atlanta to Savannah to be there for my parents. The girl that runs my office, I didn't want to displace her, so I put an office. It's now outside of Athens because she just moved. But so I do have an office there as well, and our office number is 678-714-5341. And Allison is there usually from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, answering that phone, and she also monitors the website.
Now, do you guys stick to one area of the country, or do you guys go all over, all 50? Or is it just continental, 48?
No, we go everywhere. We actually, surprisingly, we've been doing business in Hawaii recently, which is, they found us online, and I've sent a bunch of equipment to Alaska as well. I have done a lot in Jamaica. I built 4 oral surgery centers for Dr. Laddie Dunquah down there. I've been going to Jamaica now for almost 20 years.
Really?
Yeah, and so I do a lot there, and we do a smattering of stuff. I've done business in Canada and a little bit in Central America. South America is difficult. Done a couple things.
You guys speak Spanish? And then Brazil, they speak Portuguese. Yeah.
Which is, it's close. You can, but it's.
Shout out to all my Brazilian friends. I actually do have some Brazilian friends.
But it's different in doing stuff overseas. But we have expanded we were just in the Southeast in the beginning, and then I started going to more national meetings. So we go all over. And so it really doesn't matter what state.
That's good, because Dental Business Radio, all of our listeners are all over the place. I don't know if we have anybody in Jamaica, though. They're definitely not tuning.
I actually spoke with a doc here that's from Jamaica that knows Laddie Dunquah very well.
Is that right?
I spoke to him here and start working with him. He's
Nice.
here in Florida. He said, "No, I'm not going."
That's awesome. So if they want to get, everybody has your telephone number and the website and your office number. And so, Roderick, if any of the residents want to talk to you, or is there anything that you specialize that they were going to want to talk to you and not your pop?
I'm also there just if we get crowded at the booth, I'll talk to another doc.
You'll just point out the stuff that has all the buttons.
Exactly.
Lots of buttons over there. That would be me.
I'm still learning and specializing in everything. I'm still learning a lot. Still got a lot to go.
So for all of our listeners, all of our listeners out there, come up and quiz Roderick and see if he can spell the stuff or if he's got a witty way to use an analogy. And what's up with those cameras over there? Can I use those cameras?
Yes, so I do know a lot about the cameras and headlight. We use.
Can I use them in spelunking?
You could.
Expensive.
Are these very,
Mainly
very?
for filming surgeries.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's not something I would want to buy, this camera, to
More
tape
directed towards surgeries.
podcasts and stuff. Got it. Okay. So you're the camera expert.
Yes, sir.
Very good. All right. So there you go. I like that. All right. So I want to say thank you very much to Roderick and Rod Uribe of ProMed. Lots of respect to you guys. And thank you very much for being my trade show pal. I would also like to thank our producer, John Ray, and everybody at the Business Radio X family, and as well as our sponsor. Our sponsor is Practice Quotient, PPO analysis, negotiation, and strategic guidance. If you are a top-tier doc, physician, dentist, oral surgeon, endodontist, periodontist, and you do not feel like you are being compensated adequately because of your PPO contracts, then you should call the fine folks at Practice Quotient. Their telephone number is 470-592-1680 or www.practicequotient.com. Professionals, certified, and been around for 10 years, endorsed by Amos, and we just got endorsed by the GDA too, matter of fact.
Fantastic.
Yes, so I want to thank you guys very much. Did you have fun?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So everybody out there in listener land, thank you very much for listening. Until next time.